The final video is mainly concerned with this bit of text here and the sorts of things that you can do with blocks of text. So what I'm going to do temporarily, I'm going to create an additional page. So in my pages panel, click create page. Now just notice where it's gone, because I'd selected this page here. It went after that page. And just to show you that you can actually move, you can move your pages around. So I'm just waiting for that little line there, and then I'll let it go, and everything will move with it. All the artwork will move, and all of this stuff will be in the right place. And then I'm going to go down to this, and we were looking at the character panel last week, so I'm going to get that open, and we're now going to look at the paragraph panel. And if you remember, if I draw, let's just draw a big paragraph. I'm going to fill it with placeholder text. Of course, you can control the font, the size, the leading in between, and so on and so on. Now, what I'm interested in doing is just adding in some of these techniques. So I would suggest that what you do is initially you create yourself a block of text, and then you can create a sample sheet in the same way that we did last week. So you can show me that you've explored all of these areas. Now, if you remember, I did it this way because it means that I can just simply click on a whole frame or number of frames, shift click a whole number of frames, and I can change everything with one go. Later I'll give you more sophisticated tools for those who want to try something a bit more advanced. But this just allows me to be able to change the font for the whole block of text. Otherwise, let's just go back. Otherwise, when I click the text frame, up in the control bar, everything just simply reflects the actual frame itself. So the X and Y position, the width and height, and so on. In order to get to the text, I have to actually go in and select it. So of course, if I just wanted to do a little bit of it, then I could just come in and change it up here. But I can do the same with the text panel, the character panel. So I'm going to choose a font to work with. And font size, let's just make it a little bit bigger so you can see what's going on. This little red box, of course, means there's overset text, so it means I'm hiding some text. Now I've made the font size bigger, and you see it disappears. I'm not too worried about that at the moment. What I really want to show you is the paragraph panel. Right at the top you've got alignments, and it's all very obvious when you start looking into this what they actually do. This is a left justified or left aligned text, and that's the most common type of aligned text. If you right align it, it looks a little bit odd. You can see the right aligned text being used over here to distinguish it from another block of text. And in this image here, you can see it's being used as a device for this sort of calendar that's being produced. It's also used sometimes in captioning. So where you might have a photograph and there might be a caption. In this case, the captions have been turned at a 90-degree angle, but a caption on an image might also be right aligned, just to distinguish it from the blocks of text. So in InDesign, what else do we have? We have aligned center, or center aligned, and that's generally going to be used for lists of things or for titles, and it's sort of very rarely used for the main body of text. So the next set along our full justification. So I want you to have a look at this document here, where you can see there are 2 paragraphs. They're fully justified through the alignment from one edge of the column to the other edge. So there's no ragged edges, so-called ragged edges. And this is another one. So you'll see it's a very common practice in magazines and newspapers to run those articles. Be careful, it can be very, very heavy. It can look quite corporate looking if you're not careful. So I'm just fixing up this document so it doesn't have too many paragraphs, and then that will show you, let's just get rid of that one as well. And then we'll take the frame and I'm just going to apply. There's your full justification. Sometimes you can end up with quite extraordinary gaps, and there are much more advanced ways that you can deal with those gaps. But a short trick is to actually use the justification with last line aligned. So you have the same as this, you have left, right, and central. So I'll just show you central first. And what it's doing is it's creating a final last line. So it's taking the last line and putting it into the center or the left or the right. Okay. So that would be a very, very common practice, and you can see it in those articles that I just showed you. So so the final areas over here are a line to the spine, towards the spine, or a line away from the spine. And you could also ask your test frames to behave and just recognize where the spine is in facing pages. So there's a few other things that we can do here. We can indent. So if I take the frame and then create indenture, it will indent towards the right. So this one is called left indent. And then you have the opposite, you have right indent. So we can do this, we can do both. This kind of thing you might do if you're working on, you see it a lot in research papers, but also sometimes in magazines and newspapers where you want to put in a block of text, usually small block of text. It could be a quote, or it could just be something that you want to highlight in a different way. So you will have different text. Let's just go backwards. Let's go back. I could, for instance, come into the block of text and I could indent just that particular little block of text there. So it's a nice little device to give a bit of variation, and it might be that, you know, it might be a quote, for instance, that I want to put into my text. Now, also, let's just go back. This back. Same thing, you have the first line left indent, and then you have last line right indent. So again, it really just does what it says on the tin. It will take the first line of any paragraph that I'm sitting within. So at the moment, let's go back. If I'm just in one paragraph, and I use this device, it will only indent that single paragraph. If I take the whole text frame and indent, you'll see each paragraph will indent the first line, and the opposite is, of course, having the right indent on the very last line. Now, you quite often will see blocks of text where we have related paragraphs of the article, and then of course they're broken up as well with subheaders, and there's some space underneath the paragraph settings. So let's have a look at this one. This one, underneath the paragraph, there is some space. And also we've got this device here, which is drop cap, and it allows the capitalization of the first letter, or it can be several letters of the first word. Okay, and that serves to add as a sort of punctuation mark. It gives you time to breathe as you're moving through the document, and it also helps to organize and allow the reader to navigate through the reading of the article. So in InDesign, same thing, you want to be able to add spaces. So here's where you do it. If, let me just put that back to 0. So if I take the whole frame, it's the same thing, it will apply to the whole frame. Or if I click in, it will only apply to the paragraph I'm sitting within. So let's do it to the whole frame. I can add a space either before or after. So let's do a space before. So that gives you a much more readable piece of text. And then of course we've got the really nice drop caps. The drop cap 2 refers to 2 lines, and over here this is 2 letters. So I can take as many letters as I want. Normally it's just a single letter, and you decide how deep that drop cap needs to be. Let's just bring the indenture back over here so you can see it a bit better. Now, you need to be careful with this because you really don't want to have lots and lots of these on a single page. You really need to use it as a good punctuation mark, and it actually is a design device as well. As well. And you need to be really concentrating on where you're putting these, otherwise they can look very, very awkward. So once again, let's just drop this back, and if I go into the one of the paragraphs and just sit within the body text and add a drop cap, you'll see it will only go into that single paragraph. So I can actually choose the paragraph or choose paragraphs throughout the actual article. There's a few additional things here. Well, we've got shading. So if I switch shading on, you'll see that shading shades the actual written areas. So it's not the same as adding a color. Let's add a color to the text frame. So if I add a color, that goes into the text frame. So for instance, if that's what I wanted to do, I might want to push the text in a bit. So I would use my indenture to bring the text in. And then I could also use spacing here to give me some movement throughout. Shading itself, you'll see, only shades the actual. So I want you to go back and finish off the document. You're going to finish off the text. You can bring in that final image. This is a Photoshop document with the background removed. I have to say I haven't done it hugely well. Go in and fix it if you like. And it's going to look something like this, so I need to figure out how big I need it. Then you might want to consider text wrap. That will just go around the bounding box. So a quick trick is text wrap, select object shape, and then down to bounding box and detect edges, and you will get a proper text wrap around the actual starfish. So I'm sure you can improve on my design, or you could create a design of your own, or find a magazine article that you would like to copy. There's plenty of them online if you look for magazine layout, and also I'll try and give you some examples to have a look at so that you can have a go. it's good practice to just actually try and copy what someone else has done.